Hi everyone, it's Ryan Liberty, and in this video I'm going to answer the question, what is validation? Okay, so we're going to talk about what validation is. I've got notes as always because I did a ton of research on this before I started, so you'll see me looking down. But I'm going to be talking about two different uses of the word validation because it showed up a little bit earlier in psychological history and then it showed up a little later in a different form, but they're kind of related. So both of the things I'm going to be talking about when we talk about validation, they both agree that you don't have to agree with the person you're validating to validate them. So, somebody may say something that to you is like horrifying and you would never agree with that in a million years. You can still validate that person without agreeing with them. So both of these things I'm going to discuss, they say you can do this without agreeing with the person. Both of them agree that lying is never appropriate when you're validating somebody. You never have to bend the truth. So there's that, and they both agree that it's not something that you do inauthentically. You don't pretend to validate somebody. It's meant to be an experience that you can actually do and mean. So the first instance of validation comes from Naomi Fiel, and I'm rolling my eyes because I didn't know if I was going to pronounce that right, but it's Fiel, Naomi Fiel, and she came up with this in the 1960s with what was called fantasy therapy, and later became called validation therapy, and it was developed to help patients that are going through dementia. It has three components. So the first component is to classify their behaviors into four progressive stages. So you have malorientation, which is expressing past conflicts in disguised forms. You have time confusion, would be the next stage, which is no longer holding on to reality. They're now starting to retreat a little bit inward, take a more introspective stance here. In the third stage, it's called repetitive motion, and it's when instead of using words to communicate, now they're using motion, so they may do a certain thing over and over and over again. And this is done to work out unresolved conflicts that are within them. And then the fourth stage is vegetation, where they just completely shut out everything and they give up trying to resolve anything. So those are the four stages that this form of validation is trying to work through. The second classification that we're talking about here when we're talking about validation therapy is that it's based on basic empathic attitudes that respect and value the people without any judgment. And then the third thing to keep in mind when we're talking about validation therapy is that it has specific techniques to work with people to meet their needs and to bring them to resolution. So some examples of these techniques are to first center yourself, make sure you're in a good place when you approach somebody, to match their expression and their emotion. So if they're loud, you're loud. If they are quiet, you're quiet. If they are moving a lot, you move a lot. Maybe if they're moving their right side of their head, you do the same thing. That's the idea behind this. You can also do things like using extremes. So if they say that, I'm feeling really sad today, I don't feel like living anymore, you would say to them, well, what is the worst thing about living right now? Like, bring it all the way to the extreme. And that will get them, the idea is to get them to be upset and to release some emotion, to cry a little bit maybe, to work through some of those unresolved conflicts within them. And then another thing that you could do is maybe while they're crying, while they're upset, reminisce with them and say, well, what was it like when you could do the thing that you're upset about now? How did that used to feel? And it kind of takes them back into a positive place, and it helps them come back after that discharge of emotion. So that would be the first instance of validation. And the second time in history that we saw validation come up when it comes to psychology is in the 1980s when Marsha Linehan came up with dialectical behavior therapy. And she created that to help deal with people who have borderline patients, to help them specifically with emotional dysregulation. So validation was meant to help other people to gain the ability to regulate their own emotions. So you're kind of helping them to regulate their emotions from the outside so that you can further work with them and get them to regulate their own emotion. So when we're talking about validation in this case, we have 6 different levels. The first level is to simply be present, and this kind of mirrors what Naomi Fiel was talking about in her validation therapy, to be present, to be with the person, centered. The second level would be accurate reflection, which again is very similar to Naomi's work, where you let's say somebody says to you, you know, I'm angry because you hit me. You would reflect back to them exactly what they said to you. You're angry because I hit you. That would be accurate reflection. If you maybe say it a little differently, you could say to them, did I get that right? Did I hear you correctly? And allow them to confirm that yes, you did get that right. So that would be the second level. The third level would be guessing about unstated feelings. So, okay, let's say that person just said, I'm angry that you hit me. You could say, well, I can see that you're angry that I hit you, you know, and they've confirmed that. And you might say, I wonder if there's also a little bit of sadness that I hit you because it feels like you're losing a part of yourself when I hit you, or something along those lines. So you're guessing. You're not telling them how they feel, but you're guessing, and you're allowing them to weigh in and decide on whether you're right or wrong about that. The fourth level is validating in terms of past history. And this is where you could say, well, I wonder if you're sad about me hitting you because you were hit as a child and it brings you back there. And that would be an example of validating via past history. The fifth level is to validate in terms of the present and the way that most people would react. So another way would be to say, you know, I think anybody would feel that way about being hit. I think it would be normal for somebody to feel angry when somebody else hits them. And I think it would be pretty normal, actually, for anybody to feel a little bit sad about that, too. Hopefully you're not hitting anybody, by the way. You know, just threw that up as an example for no reason. And then the sixth level here is radical genuineness. And this kind of goes back to, again, what Marcia kind of agrees here with Naomi in saying that you have to be authentic when you're doing this. You have to actually care and feel empathetic towards the other person. It can't be faked. It can't be like you're just doing this to get something out of the person or to bring them to a certain place. You have to actually care about the person. So these are two different examples of validation. Validation is very helpful for a person who is distancing themselves from you for one reason or another, who maybe is their emotions are a little all over the place, maybe they're deeply upset about something. These validation techniques can help to bring them back a little bit. Maybe you've used them in your own life, so I'd love to hear about your experience with validation. Maybe you've gone through DBT yourself. If you have, I'd love to know what you think about this, so leave that below, please. And thank you for learning about validation with me. Hey, it's Ryan Liberty. If you liked that video, please give it a thumbs up, share with a friend, and leave any questions or comments down below because that would really help me out. If you're somebody who's gone through a traumatic event and you're feeling cut off from the people around you, I have a free course that will help with that, so please click to get it. And if you'd like to see the rest of my videos, please click subscribe. As always, I want to remind you that your life matters. Nobody can question your worth. However it is that you're feeling, whatever it is that you're going through, it's okay, and you are loved. Thanks again for watching.